Alright guys, the last video was a little controversial. It made some people very upset. I got called a lot of things. None of them were very good for saying that I did not still enjoy the original Super Mario Bros. On the NES. So, this video is going to be the opposite of that other one. Hopefully, it'll get a better response. But this is going to be all about the retro games I love. For the purpose of this video, I'm going to kick out Gen 6 from being retro, which is like the PS2, Xbox, Dreamcast, GameCube. That is generally considered retro at this point, but it doesn't feel old enough for the point I'm trying to make here, which is that despite being born after all of these games came out, and despite not liking the original Mario Bros. On the NES, or the original Super Mario Bros., I should say, sorry, I do genuinely enjoy retro games. This is a retro gaming channel. I am a game collector. As you can see, I have tons of games of various genres and generations back there. Yeah, and we're just gonna go through and talk about the retro games I love the most. If you want to hear about an additional retro game I love, join our Patreon to read my review of Kirby's Dream Land 3, an awesome platformer on the SNES. I played the Super Famicom version because it's way cheaper. But yeah, that game's sick. So go see what I thought about it. Like and subscribe, leave a nice comment saying something nice if you want to. You can say something mean also. But let's try to get to 78 comments of nice things on this video. Share retro games you love. What are some of your favorites? What are some recommendations you'd have for me based on what I like? Without further ado, I'm just going to take this console by console. Let's get into it. Beginning with, of course, the NES. First up is Dragon Warrior. 8-bit RPGs are something that have really fascinated me, and I think they're pretty cool. And they're definitely something I want to dive into more than I have. But as of now, Dragon Warrior is the only one I've really truly played. I haven't beat it. I haven't actually ever beat a Dragon Quest game, although I've played a ton of them, and I do really like them. But yeah, I will probably beat Dragon Quest Monsters on the Switch soon. And that'll be my first Dragon Quest game, which is fun little fun fact. This game holds up surprisingly well for being kind of the first JRPG of this type. I know that's probably wrong, but it feels like it set a lot of the standards for what JRPGs are and how they behave and what you can expect from a JRPG. And that simple game loop of Dragon Quest, of just building up your party, grinding, progressing through the story, talking to people, going to new towns, is just super solid. It works, even from the first game, it just works. And yeah, this game is very easy to sink 4 or 5 hours into, which is surprising for a RPG of this age, that it has aged so well. And I genuinely do mean that. I think this game has aged really well. And yeah, the Dragon Quest world is just super fun to explore. I really do love this game. Next up is a pretty unique puzzle game in Yoshi's Cookie. I also do like the other Yoshi's puzzle game on the NES, but I just like it, I don't love it. It's more of a casual thing with that other Yoshi's game, but it's serious with Yoshi's Cookie. For those of you who don't know, in this game, you're trying to match up different sweets or cookies, and you can move them on a grid so that they line up and clear. It's a pretty unique concept among puzzle games. I can't really think of any other ones, especially ones older than this, that do that. I know this was cross-generational, I think it's also on the SNES. I've never played that version. I assume it's pretty similar, given that it's just a puzzle game. But yeah, this is a super awesome puzzle game, one that I really like to sit down and just kind of work through. I haven't beat this one yet. It's one of the ones I was going to beat this month of December. I try to beat 2 games every month, and it's still in the running for being the second game that I beat this month. I just haven't done it yet. And yeah, like any good puzzle game, it's a pretty simple concept that can scale really easily and you can sink a lot of time into. I love puzzle games. This is one of the puzzle games that I like the most. Next up is a different type of puzzle game with The Adventures of Lolo. I haven't played 2 or 3, but I want to because I really like 1. How I've described it is fast food Zelda dungeons, almost, and I haven't played a ton of Zelda, so I could be off base saying that, but that's always how I've interpreted it. It's a top-down adventure puzzle game where you just go into different rooms and you have to collect the thing so that the enemies go away, and then you can get to the next door, to the next room, rinse and repeat for 100 levels. Lolo's super cute. I love little round dudes. We're going to be talking about a slightly more famous round dude next, but Lolo's a pretty cool one. And yeah, the puzzles in this game are just very fun, very creative, and it does really feel like you're going on a little adventure, even though there isn't much else to this game besides just going room to room and solving the puzzles. This is a big one. My favorite round dude of all time, Kirby, doesn't really feel like a dude. Feels more like a ball, but whatever. Round creature. This game has save states, which is huge, which I know is whatever, I'm spoiled, I'm young. Back in my day, we had to beat an entire 2-hour game in one go. That was hard and unforgiving. Not that Kirby's hard and unforgiving, but other games are. But yeah, this is the first Kirby game that had abilities and stuff. It really feels like a true blue Kirby game The frame rate can get pretty rough sometimes, especially when you use like any ability that has a complex animation. Complex is in quotes because it's on the NES. But besides that, and even like despite that, it's not even a huge deal. This game's super fun. They really were using like the NES's color palette to its fullest potential. In this game, there really aren't any other NES games that come close to looking as nice as this game, in my opinion. It's super awesome. And yeah, it's a super solid platformer that holds up very well, especially because of the save states. This is one of those NES games I beat on original hardware and not like on an emulator with save states, which is what I do sometimes. I'm sorry. Being able to beat this game on original hardware was super special, and yeah, I love Kirby. Next up is a game I'm certainly not going to beat. Actually, I wouldn't completely count it out. I've gotten pretty far in this game. Snake's Rattle and Roll. I hear nothing about this game from anybody besides me, and I shout about it from the rooftops. Because I really love this game. It's an awesome isometric, like 3D platformer, and I know people are going to be like, you called Mario clunky, but you're going to play a 3D isometric platformer on the NES and say you like it? Yes, I am. I have no further defense. But it's super cute. It's made by Rare, and they inject their charm into every inch of this game. It looks really good for being like an isometric 3D platformer. This is another game that kind of pushes the NES to its limits, although it doesn't have the same slowdown as Kirby's Adventure. It runs really smoothly, and it is a true blue like 3D collectathon where you go around and you eat like little balls that sometimes turn into bombs and sometimes run around. I don't really know what they are. And you defeat enemies to collect enough points, and then that will like activate a thing at the end of the level, and once you have enough points, the door will open. So it really encourages like exploring around the level, finding out little secrets so you can open the door. This game's pretty hard, but I can get to like the 4th or 5th level without save states or anything, and I can feel myself improving. Like, I think I do get better at this game. Someday I will beat it. And yeah, it's just a super cool little game. If you haven't played this and you're interested at all in older like 3D stuff, older attempts at 3D, and you can stomach isometric games, I know it's a huge turnoff for some people, I would highly recommend this game. It's really cool. Very much an overlooked game that deserves more attention. Then lastly for the NES is what I would consider a more undisputed, rare banger on the system. RC Pro-Am. I love racing games, and this one is super cool. It's like a top-down arcade racer. I really like how the driving feels in this game. It's different than a lot of other racing games where your momentum is pretty much just directly wherever your car is facing at that moment. It's very slidey. You're kind of always like drifting around. It feels like you're ice skating maybe more than driving a car. But I like that for this game. The graphics are super cute. The power-ups are fun. I like that you can pick up power-ups that like upgrade your car, and so there's a little bit of strategy there where like, you know, do you want to increase your handling or do you want to take this turn a little bit better? And then there are also power-ups that mess with your opponents, like I think shurikens and like rockets and oil spills. Stuff like that you can place down to mess with your opponents. Super fun, pretty straightforward arcade racing game. Now it's time to talk about the NES's overlooked and underrated rival, the Sega Master System. I don't have many games for this console, but it's just such a vibe. Like, Master System games just feel like Master System games. They're distinct from the NES. Like, it's worth having both if you're into retro collecting and you like 8-bit stuff. A lot of the Master System games, of course, were produced by Sega or closely alongside Sega, so they're things that didn't get released elsewhere. That was really their strategy since Nintendo kind of bought up all the third parties. Here are the Master System games that I love. Like I said, I don't have many games for this. I probably have like 70 for the NES, and for the Master System, I think I have like 8. So this is going to be a much smaller selection. Its library in general was also just smaller. But I do love the Master System, and I do want to dive more into the other games that I own that are not appearing in this video. But for the two that are, they are special. Like Wonder Boy and Monsterland is probably in my top 20 games of all time somewhere. For those who don't know, Wonder Boy is like a series of action, kind of very light RPG, mainly platformer games where you are Wonder Boy or sometimes Monster Boy. I think they're the same series. Or sometimes some other people. You know, I played a few games in the series. I really like them. This one's probably my favorite that I've ever played though. Yeah, it's just so charming. This is like, I've always described this as like the game that they would put in a movie to be a game that isn't a real game. It's this game. I don't know if that makes sense, but this is just like the most video game ever, and I love it for that. You know, you go through the levels, you collect coins from enemies that you defeat, and then you can use those coins to like upgrade your sword or your armor or buy a shield, all the things like that. There are a lot of boss fights in this game at the end of the levels that let you get a key to unlock, like everything that happens in a video game happens in this game, and it's really awesome. I love the art style of this game. I love the world of this game. I love the gameplay. It's pretty unique among games. I mean, obviously there since have been other games like it, but this is the first game of its kind that I know of, that I can think of, and it's really awesome, and it really embodies why I love the Master System. Just very unique, cool ideas that are video games through and through with a cool art style. And this really stands in for Fantasy Zone 1 and 2, but Opa Opa is my favorite Sega mascot, and the world of Fantasy Zone is just so colorful and fun. I never get very far in this game. I have only gotten about halfway through Wonder Boy also, to be honest. But Fantasy Zone specifically, I don't think I've really ever made it past the first area. I've definitely made it to the first boss a few times, but I've never beat it. I can tell, like, first off, the aesthetics in this game are so cute. It's a cute 'em up, obviously, so that's how they're gonna be. You know, you're like a little bug ship thing. The enemies are like spawning from flowers. You're in like a little meadow in a forest. It's just such a vibe. And then the gameplay loop is genuinely unique among shoot 'em ups, where you like teleport from place to place, like on your own fruition. You can go forwards or backwards, which is huge. You can choose which way you go. You kind of do have to grind up coins sometimes, which is another thing you can do. And then there are shops that you can fly to where you buy upgrades for your ship. It's just a very simple like twist on the shoot 'em up formula, but one that's unique and hasn't been done too much to my knowledge. If you know other games that have a similar gameplay loop, let me know, because I really do like the gameplay loop of Fantasy Zone. I'm just really bad at it, but I love the aesthetics in this game. And yeah, it's very special. Now it's time for the SNES. This is an interesting console for me because I feel like a lot of the beloved games on this console are JRPGs that, one, are usually super expensive, and two, a lot of them have been ported, fortunately, to newer places. Like, for example, Chrono Trigger, I have that for the DS and not the SNES because the DS version is way more affordable. There's just a lot of stuff like that, so my SNES collection's a little stripped down and a little weird, I guess I could say, but there are tons of games I love on the SNES, and here are those games. First up for the SNES is one of my favorite puzzle games of all time, Tetris Attack. It feels a little silly saying that because it's such a simple game. If you like, this is like the puzzle game. You just literally switch 2 blocks around at a time and try to get matches of 3 or more as the thing rises. It's like very straightforward. I also have Paneled Upon, very cool. This one has Yoshi, so I chose it. And also my Paneled Upon cart is just kind of beat up. So this one's a little more photogenic. But genuinely, Tetris Attack is probably in my top like maybe 15 games of all time. I go into a trance when I play this game. It holds my attention so well. It's super fun, super simple. If you haven't played Tetris Attack, what are you doing? Play really any version of it you can get your hands on, even Pokemon Puzzle League. It's awesome. Next up is Kirby's Avalanche. I could really have put any version of Puyo Puyo on this list. Puyo Puyo is probably in like my top 5 games of all time. But this one has Kirby, so that's why I chose this one. I just think that's a fun little crossover between 2 of my favorite concepts ever. Very cool that this exists. But yeah, this is a version of Puyo Puyo, which if you don't know, is another falling block puzzle game where like 2 little Puyos at a time come down. They're in different colors, and you need to match 4 or more to clear them. It's very like gravity based, like the Puyos will always fall to the lowest block that they can. They're not like a solid object like Tetraminos, I think they're called, like Tetraminos are. And there's a lot of strategy that goes into like creating combos where like if you clear 1 row of Puyos, then more Puyos will like fall onto each other that then clear more. And you really do need to combo to beat people in this game. That's a huge part of it, and I just love the strategy that goes into that. Super awesome puzzle game. Next up is the second racing game of the video, F-Zero. I just really think 8-bit and 16-bit racing games are fascinating because they've always been like pretty technology-dependent games. So when we had worse technology, it's cool to see the ways people found workarounds. Obviously, the music in this game is so hype. It has an awesome soundtrack. I really like the different vehicles you can choose. They're all very cute and charming and fun. And obviously, the racing feels great. It's very high speed, can be pretty unforgiving, but you do get the hang of it. And just the Mode 7 and stuff in this game looks great. This game runs really well, plays like a dream. It's very awesome. And then lastly, for the SNES, is the first Mario game of this. I guess kind of a Mario game. Mario's in it, he's on the cover. Yoshi's Island. First off, I have to say, I love the aesthetic of this game. It looks like all crayoned in. Super fun. Looks better than most other SNES games. I still think I like Kirby's Dream Land 3 more in terms of how it looks, but it does look beautiful. And just the puzzles they come up with Yoshi's egg throwing and just all the other ways you can like move around the map and stuff is super fun. This is a super solid platformer. Definitely one of my favorite 16-bit platformers of all time. And yeah, I love the Yoshi games in general. This is the second time he's appeared in this video alone. Once again, it's time for Sega. The Sega Genesis is a super cool console. It, like the Master System, just has such a vibe of its own. It's very like edgy and kind of dark. Not all the games are like that, obviously, but that's just kind of the feeling I get from it. And also, it's awesome for 2-player. I play the Genesis probably more than really any other retro console, like multiplayer with people when I have people over. It competes a little bit with the N64, but it's definitely one of those consoles that has a ton of great multiplayer stuff, and, controllers for it are like $5, so it's easy to play with someone else. Beginning with one of my favorite multiplayer games of all time, which is NBA Jam. This is just super solid arcadey basketball through and through. I love the announcer. He's very charming. The music is fun. And yeah, this game's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, pretty easy to pick up and play, which makes it awesome to play with people that aren't really used to retro games or gaming in general, even. It's just a very simple and charming game instantly. And yeah, if you're looking for multiplayer stuff to play, and you like sports games, you like old retro games, you should definitely play NBA Jam. You probably already have, but if you haven't, you owe it to yourself. Play this game, the super awesome arcadey sports title on the Genesis. Next up, this is probably in my top 10 to 15 games of all time. Streets of Rage 2 is awesome. The music in this game is some of the best music ever. It really puts like I don't know how to say it, like goopy little Genesis sound chip to work. It just sounds so like acid-y and jazzy. Not jazzy, but like I guess in aura it sounds jazzy. And yeah, it's just a super solid beat 'em up with good character selection. The moves are very satisfying to pull off. They feel great. The levels are challenging but fair, and they scale well with like playing with more or less people. The bosses are fun. The boss music is awesome. I really love the boss theme and the intro theme to this game. They're so hype. At least listen to the soundtrack to this game if you don't play it, because it is really good. And yeah, I love beat 'em ups, and I think this one is just one of the most pure, solid beat 'em ups that there is. It's super fun to play, and another one that's great for multiplayer with people. Alright, and then kind of lastly, for the Genesis, is another puzzle game. Columns. This one is another falling block puzzle game, but instead of 2 things at a time, like in Puyo Puyo, you get 3. In like other versions of this game, like I have super columns on the Game Gear, you can turn around like which way the columns are facing. I don't think you can do that in this version, or if you have, I haven't found out how to. But it's a super solid puzzle game. I love the aesthetics of it. It's like, I think Greek or Roman. Sorry, I'm not sure which one. I'm assuming it's because it's named columns, and those are like architecture and stuff. The music is super cool. There's a very good vibe to it. And yeah, this is another one of those puzzle games that's just super satisfying to sit down and get locked into for like 30 minutes. Next up is a game that made an appearance in the retro games I don't understand, or classic games I don't understand video, and that's Virtua Fighter. It was a stand-in for Mortal Kombat because I didn't actually have a copy of Mortal Kombat on hand. I do love this fighting game. I'm not very good at it. There are a lot of fighting games like that because I'm just not really a fighting game person, but I think the gameplay in Virtua Fighter is very easy to pick up and play, and it's all about kind of finding a rhythm with your character. The movesets are pretty simple from what I understand. I'm sure I'm missing some combos and stuff that you can do. It's a pretty straightforward fighting game, and I just love seeing the 32X do stuff, especially 3D stuff. I'm just kind of grouping this in with the Genesis part of the video, even though I know it's its own console, kinda. I'm counting it as a Genesis, and I love Virtua Fighter. Super awesome fighting game, even if you're not really into fighting games. And then lastly, for the Genesis, is Virtua Racing. This is another example of I just love watching the 32X do 3D. It's so charming, so fun. The models in this game are beautiful, beautifully chunky and polygonal is what I mean by that. They're maybe not beautiful to everybody, but they're beautiful to me. And the arcade racing aspect of this game really does feel great. Turning feels fast and fun and electric. And yeah, I just love really how this game looks and feels to play as a racing game. Super awesome. These 2 games on their own make the 32X worth it to me. I did get it for pretty cheap, just off some random dude on Facebook Marketplace before I even really knew what it was. Yeah, these 2 games are awesome. The 32X is so fun to explore, even though its library is pretty small, and these games are undisputable bangers. Moving up a generation, I got a Sega Saturn this year. I don't think I've had enough time with it to say I truly love any of the games, but I will quickly shout out Clockwork Knight and Princess Crown. Those are the 2 games I've mainly played on my Sega Saturn, and I like them both. They're pretty fun. Clockwork Knight is a little, clunky, but everything looks like toys, and it's pretty short and pretty easy, so that makes up for it, and I just love how things look on the Sega Saturn. There's also a really cool puzzle game called Baku Baku Animal that I think's released on some other platforms that is kind of similar to Pack Attack, where, you have to get groups of fruits together or groups of foods together, and then whatever animal eats those foods will complete the chain and make it unlock. Also kind of like Puzzle Fighter. It's a very cool platformer, very weird, the super weird art style. But yeah, if you have a Sega Saturn, that's a big recommendation for me, even though I wouldn't say I love it quite yet. Alright, now onto the N64.
Give me my own video.
Okay, we're gonna move over that one for now, and now onto the PS1. I mean, I like Tekken 2. With all that being said, let me know if you guys want a part 2. As you noticed, there were no handhelds in this video, just because it'd be too long if I did that. But I have tons of handheld retro games I love. So if you'd want a part 2 with more handheld games, and even maybe a couple games from these consoles that I overlooked in this video, let me know. I'll make that. And yeah, just, I love retro gaming. I really do, even if I don't like Mario, I promise. So yeah, thank you for watching. I hope your holiday seasons were great. I hope 2025 is your year and you achieve everything you want to achieve. And yeah, thank you for watching.